Welcome back, or welcome to the Rebel Tech Podcast. I'm your host, per usual, David Dunmoyer, here to discuss all things emerging technologies and the promises and perils therein. Now, today we have, I feel like I always say we have a unique discussion. We have a unique guest to guide us in a unique discussion. And it's because our guest today would not call himself a public policy expert. He would not say that he's in the field of politics. He would say he's an everyday Texan who felt the call to enter the arena and really advocate for bills that affect him. And so part of the discussion today is to remind myself and you all that technology policy affects everyone, no matter what your job is. And so with that, there's no one better to guide us through that discussion than Dominic Cruciani, our guest today. Drove out from Houston here, and he is a friend of the foundation, personal friend. In one capacity, he serves as the chair of our Houston Liberty Leadership Council. We'll talk about that, what that entails. He's also a litigation attorney, formerly of Baker Botts, and soon to be joining the Jones Day team. And on top of that, I have to note you're a UT alum, but not just an alum, but a former football player. So we'll have to talk Longhorn football.
Got the ring to prove.
That's right. Well, Dom, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Well, thanks, David. Excited to be here. Always great to talk to you. We've gone back and forth on the AI policy landscape for a long time. So glad to be on the show here.
Well, the pleasure's all ours. I say proverbially for Jefferson in the room too. I do. So I want to start. Is I think the policy discussion on AI tends to focus on, line 2, what does this definition mean? And we get caught up in the specific mechanics of legislation, but we have to remember why we have legislation on issues, and that's because there are issues such as emerging technologies that affect us. And so you, as I said, are a litigation attorney. Mm-hmm. You're probably using AI. You see it affecting your field. Mm-hmm. I'd love for you to just start. How are you seeing AI transform your line of work and what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So that was my focus for a long time. I've been writing on AI and the law since, law school seminars and law review papers. And it's come a long way pretty quickly. I think firms are now starting to adopt it more readily. Law firms in particular tend to be slower moving, more cautious creatures, risk averse. But now the benefits are so obvious and the confidence level has grown high enough in a lot of firms that it's becoming much more prevalent. And a lot of the times when clients see the potential benefits of it, there's a growing demand on the client side that law firms implement these tools, especially on the more onerous parts of litigation, which is my world, especially discovery. I mean, in modern litigation, you just have millions of documents a lot of the time. And it used to be, okay, let's go in the no AC warehouse and go through boxes of documents.
The trope of bury them in the paperwork.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. But now, I mean, if you get a few tens of thousands of documents, have a really strong data set, you can fly through those way quicker. And now the more recent development that it's really matured, I'd say 3 years ago, I'd give you a different answer. But now on the legal research side, it's grown a lot more reliable. You still have to be careful. Obviously, there's all sorts of pitfalls there, hallucinating cases, which is a growing issue as people rely on it more. But I mean, it's great at some things. I think one thing that I encourage people to use it a lot for is summarizing data. If you get 50 PDFs and you need a quick answer, it can summarize that really well a lot of the times. You always have to double check when time allows. But if you just need a quick answer, it's good at that. And using it as a sparring partner as well. So here's a draft, what are the weaknesses in here? What would opposing counsel use to poke holes in this argument so you can strengthen it on the front end?
Right.
So those are ways I use it.
Yeah, that last point on kind of the oppositional talking, but we use that internally at TPPF all the time. In fact, this morning I was just doing that on a policy council presentation. You mentioned the confabulation or hallucination. For our listeners, probably remember there have been at least a few cases now where attorneys are using AI to write the actual content they're going to be delivering to a court, and there are a lot of issues therein. I guess asking you, do you think currently, based on the iteration of AI we're at right now, does it present more opportunities or risks for someone like you in your job?
I think it all depends on how you use it. I think if you use it prudently, there's more potential rewards than risks, especially with the efficiency gains. I wrote an article on this exact topic with some of my former Baker Botts colleagues, especially Rich Harper up in New York. He's a real leader in the space. And it was called Trust But Verify. So yes, it's a tool that can really accelerate a lot of the production side. But if you don't have a strong back filter, especially to verify everything, all these outputs, you're really putting yourself at risk. I like to say that, people are always worried, oh, is AI going to take over our jobs? Well, the people who are most at risk are the ones that are acting like they're replaceable. Oh, just have AI do it. Those are the people that are going to get in trouble because they're viewing themselves, even if subconsciously, as replaceable.
Sure. So that's going to be my next question. Have you noticed some of the entry-level research analyst type positions are different firms in Houston or what you're tracking? Are they hiring less? Are they hiring for different skills? Have you seen that take full root yet?
So I don't have necessarily the macro level hiring, but we're still, firms are still hiring, but I think they're having an eye towards this technology. Even a lot of the summer programs are now incorporating, hey, can you use the various AI legal tools? And they'll have training sessions on that specifically. That's just a way to, for the younger folks that are trying to come in, the skill requirements, I think, have evolved. And, you're not going to get replaced by AI, but you very easily could get replaced by attorneys who do use AI. So I think integrating that into the law school curriculum and then the early legal training at firms in particular is a really valuable asset. And yeah, there's a lot of times you look at the skills and tasks assigned to those juniors, and I can do that as efficiently, if not more so, if with the proper use of AI tools.
Right. No, that all makes sense. Well, you kind of shifting gears here for a second. You've been following the Texas Legislature, and I think, for our listeners again, the Liberty Leadership Council is our group of young professionals. TPPF is the umbrella organization, but really we empower different communities, cities to create their own councils and start getting folks who aren't every day in policy to find ways to engage. And so you chair our Houston chapter. In addition to your leadership on that, you put the rubber to the road and monitored bills that you thought were interesting. And, personal story on this, I remember Olivia, who heads up our LLC program, said, hey, Dom, who chairs our Houston chapter, he wants to drive down to Austin to testify on this bill. I'm like, yes, this is this is so rare. We need more of this. So let's talk about what that bill was. What was the bill that you drove out here to testify on, and why did you think it was worth the miles and time off from work to come and have your voice heard?
Sure. So HB 149 was the bill. It's you'll probably remember the name better. It's the Responsible Governance of AI Technologies.
Texas Responsible AI Governance Act. Close enough, yeah.
And I thought it was just, I was back and forth with Olivia. I let her know, hey, these are the policy issues I'm interested in. AI had a little star next to it, I think, and said, let me know if things are coming down the pipeline. And really, Olivia shook her head when I told this, but I think it's more true than not. A lot of it is just saying yes to opportunities, letting people know what you're interested in, and saying yes when opportunities come up. And that's all that one was. It kind of jumped on the docket all of a sudden, and she said, hey, it's tomorrow at 8 a.m. I said, I'll be there, And that was a great experience being there. TPPF did a great job to equip me, help me feel comfortable, set expectations. They sent you along to testify on behalf of TPPF. So I even had a built-in Sherpa to navigate it, which I was grateful for, because going through the labyrinth of the halls was made a lot easier with you. But it's something, like I said, I've been interested in since law school, and actually seeing it finally materialize into policy that is going to affect how this new environment is going to evolve in Texas. Is like, I got to be there.
Yeah. And you, if I remember correctly, you had a line in your testimony. And actually, let's not bury the lead, because when you testified, this is very rare this happens. The chair of the Senate BNC committee, Senator Charles Schwarzenegger, the hearing at least had adjourned temporarily, and it was one of those where we thought the bill was going to be at 8, and I think we waited until 10, 11, 12. I don't remember what time. No, it was after lunch. That's what it was.
Lunch break.
Lunch break. We came back, testified. You had a phenomenal testimony coming from your point of view as an attorney and somebody who's researched this. And the chair of the committee pulled you aside to thank you for your words and your testimony. So that was pretty neat. Mm-hmm. What did you say in your testimony?
So the lead, I guess, I wrote a little op-ed afterwards, and it said, hey, there's a new sheriff in town, because my premise was, hey, it's kind of the Wild West in terms of AI development right now. So establishing some just baseline regulation just to, set the parameters of what are we even talking about here with AI. What are some things that obviously we don't want this technology being used to harm citizens? It's like, okay, but that wasn't part of the policy. And then really balancing minimum viable regulation with innovation, which is the real goal. All of that is set up not to regulate and have Big Brother looking over these startups' shoulders. It's to help innovate and protect the citizens at the same time. So that was a big part of it is, hey, we need this. We need the Texas values being implemented into this policy because, I mean, even within the different states, there's a lot of different views and values that are being put into policy, let alone the global AI race that's going on. So Texas, as goes Texas, as goes the country, as goes the world. So Texas leading from the front and turning that into actionable policy that really balances those values, I thought was critical.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm in full agreement with you. But to push back for a second, given your background, one of the comments that we heard in the early days of that bill being drafted, and even when it was being heard, is there are rules and there are laws on the books right now that will address much of what happens with AI. And there's certainly some truth to that. But then the argument goes further, which is, well, then we need not regulate at all. Let's let the courts work this out. What are your thoughts on that as somebody who is a litigator and somebody who's probably seen firsthand some of these cases? What would you respond to that with?
So very valid point. Couple responses to that. One, that argument taken too far can easily turn into judges legislating from the bench, which is just not their role. It's not what they're good at. That's what Congress is for. So if we say, oh, we have some policies on the books, just let the courts figure it out, you can get some judges that will that'll cross that separation of power line just by omission. So it can be dangerous in that regard. And on top of that, there's policies that may be on the books, but they're out of date. They were drafted and implemented into law when this wasn't part of the cultural understanding of the marketplace. For instance, one of the parts of HB 149 basically makes it so that if there's an AI system that is deceiving consumers in the marketplace, it's like, okay, well, now that can be a violation of the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act, right? Whereas previously that act assumed only human actors were at play, which was correct at the time, but it's no longer correct. So a lot of it's just updating to actually match the reality of the situation that's not at play.
Yep. No, well, incredibly well said. And, I was listening to a couple of podcasts this weekend that are talking about the new executive order. We'll talk about that in a second here. I was reminded of a different AI bill, Senate Bill 20, which was the Lieutenant Governor Priority Bill. And it was addressing the issue of deepfake creation, especially sexual content targeting young girls, which is a huge prevalent issue. And there was an interim hearing in Senate Criminal Justice where they heard from prosecutors. And the question from the committee was, well, we have laws. Why can't we enforce that for AI? And the response, I'll never forget, yes, you have laws, but the law says previously that if there's synthetic sexual content that's targeting a young girl, it has to be provable that it's the actual child affected, or the prosecutor can't prosecute. The challenge is AI, to your point, changing technology, they can morph together the identity of 3 kids. And so there was that bill. One of the big changes that's going to have a huge effect was change the standard from actual child to indistinguishable from. And the prosecutors are saying, if you do this fix, then we can actually bring the bad guys to justice. So 100% agree. That point, I think it was, pretty sexy and topical for the first couple months of AI, but we've seen it's changed to where, yes, some of those laws are dormant as applied here.
And just to put a loop on that, close the loop on it, that when you leave it to the courts, it requires a high degree of precision.
Right.
That a lot of the times the judge's hands are tied by very specific language like that. So updating the laws at issue to actually allow the courts to do their job well is really important.
Yep. No, I agree fully. Well, so for our listeners, we're coming at you. What is today's date? December 15th. And on Friday, this last week, President Trump signed an executive order. It essentially says that the National Attorney General, has the authority to look into state AI laws that are burdensome, cumbersome, and at odds with the agenda for the current Trump administration for advancing innovation in AI. And from there, if the Attorney General determines that these AI state laws are onerous, the federal government can withhold different broadband investments to those states if they do not repeal that law. In a nutshell, and feel free to add from your perspective as well, how do you think Texas plays into this? Because we were talking beforehand, and you were right, Colorado is mentioned as a bad example in this EO. There's no mention of Texas. So what do you think, if you're the magic wand holder, how does the Texas law fit into this new executive order regime?
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, that the executive order, well, one, it's coming at the issue of AI with, I think, a solid fundamental principle on one level, that it says, hey, we want innovation, which is important, and we want to continue U.S. supremacy in this. Vitally important, especially if you look at how the global race is going and the trajectory it's on. On that level, okay, we're on the same page there. And you look at the marketplace of ideas concept, which I'm generally highly in favor of. You look at policies like the one the executive order mentions in Colorado as an example of what not to do. This is the reason the executive order is concerned with the patchwork of different state laws and the startups that have to navigate that. It can be very hard. But to your question, what's the Texas's role in this? I think this confirms how important it was for Texas to have passed HB 149 into law, because now gives the federal administration a different example of what to do well, and that can help provide guidance as a national framework is formed here. And I think there's currently a lot more questions and answers of how this will actually play out. The Attorney General and different agencies, the FCC, the FTC, are more in analysis stage right now. So I'm really curious to see what they come back with once that evaluation is complete. If I had to guess, I think they're going to be a lot more happy with Texas than they are with Colorado or California. Yeah. And that's, for listeners to the Colorado issue, which came up in Texas initially, before there was House Bill 149, which you testified on, there was House Bill 1709, which was the first version of TRIGA. And it had a similar statute that said, in instances of algorithmic discrimination or disparate impact, that would be deceptive trade practice. And the issue, and this is where, on paper, if you're talking to somebody, hey, like I went through this with my fiance recently. We were looking at honeymoon options. I was here in Austin. She was in Amarillo. We're on the same website. I'm looking at the cost of different honeymoon options. She's on the same website, same thing. Her pricing was different than mine. I read the terms of service. There's dynamic algorithmic pricing. And under the Colorado law, you could say that's grounds of discrimination on account of if it's, race, socioeconomic status, what have you.
And so Colorado, well-intentioned, let's say, you don't want banks to be, increasing the interest just because you're a certain color or a certain creed. Sure. But there are so many issues embroiled within where a startup company is not going to want to get off the ground. Mm-hmm. So bringing it back to Texas, and you said this so well, which is we want the guardrails so that innovators can innovate. Just bring it back to that. There's the sandbox, there's other components. Was there something about the Texas law, whether just the model philosophically, that you think, hey, Trump, this is something we should be exporting nationally?
That's a really good question. I think the establishing just the foundational floor that we don't want to go below. Mm-hmm. This shouldn't be used to actively cause harm to humans, like physical harm or harm to self. Okay, that's, I think, very uncontroversial. So just getting the common sense guardrails put on. And then beyond that, one thing that I really liked about the HB 149 was the council it established. Mm-hmm. What was the name of the council?
So there's the Artificial Intelligence Council.
That's the one. That just the AI Council. And I like that because AI is so fast moving that the traditional way of legislating is really challenging. I mean, look at Texas. We meet every 2 years. Yeah. I mean, you're looking at a different world in terms of AI speed from 1 2 year period to the next. So having a nimble council that can provide updates, that can keep the legislature informed, that can just be the eyes and ears to know what's going on in the marketplace, so that we can adjust in a nimble fashion. Right. Because this is not a space where it benefits one to be walking around in wooden clogs.
Yep. Which most governments are wont to do in certain situations like this.
Which a lot of the time I don't mind.
No, this is true. This is by necessity. We have the biennial legislature, so we pass fewer laws.
That's right.
And to echo that point, because it's very well said, the AI Council in Texas was created in tandem with the AI Sandbox, which allows startup companies for 18 months to have not a permission list, but relatively free of regulation to build out and grow. And the point of the council is to hear from those participants and other business members what's onerous. Yeah. Where is the red tape?
Yeah.
Or juxtapose that with California, which they have their own agency, which is a government agency that stifles and puts red tape on. So I think this is something in the whole web of madness of bills that passed through session. A lot of this was forgotten because, as you probably recall, it was a long bill. Yeah. There's a lot of content in it. So then coming back to testimony, to kind of bring full circle here, because part of why we're having the show, I'm going to shout Dominic out. He won our LLC Member of the Year award for your leadership in Houston, but then also for your leadership in showing, hey, I'm putting my money where my mouth is and I'm coming out to testify. I remember when we were walking back from the Capitol, I asked you, how does this differ from when you're litigating a case? What was the testimony experience like for you? So I'll give you a chance, maybe for listeners who are like, yeah, I'd love to do that, but when the call comes, I'm too scared or I don't know what to expect. What's your counsel and thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I was honored to get the LLC Member of the Year award, and kind of surprised because, again, from my perspective, I was just saying yes to exciting opportunities.
It was an easy decision on our end.
I just wanted to do those things anyways. Yeah. But I was reflecting on it. Well, like, why me, right? I mean, I looked at all the bios of the people there, and I was like, there's some really impressive folks here. And I think it was just what you said, like, hey, that's what the LLC is about, is actually getting people to, like, especially young folks, to engage in the system, to take a little more ownership than they otherwise would have. And a lot of that's just figuring out, what do you actually care about? What are you independently interested in? And just raising your hand and saying, hey, I would like to jump in when an opportunity comes up, and saying yes. So I feel like that was a lot of the experience leading up to it. And once we were there, I was surprised on some level because, like you said, we sat through the whole morning and saw a bunch of different issues that were before the Senate committee.
Oh, was it the pet breeders bill.
Oh yeah, that by far the most controversial one.
Was
I thought the AI bill was going to be the one, and that paled in comparison.
This was like predatory loans for pet adoption. Was that it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I just remember, man, you get people's dogs and cats involved in it.
It's over.
Gloves are off.
Yeah.
So ours was docile by comparison to that.
Yeah.
But I was getting ready for it very much like I would an argument, an oral argument at court. And in some ways, it had some overlap. But as we saw with people that were testifying on the pet bill or any number of bills, it is a lot more approachable than I expected. It's like not everyone wants to go walk into court and argue. I think it's fun, but a lot of people say no. It's like they fear that slightly more than death, right? But with that, there was just everyday Texans that just said, I care about this. They're talking about it, and what that discussion is going to affect the reality of that an aspect of life in Texas. I want to raise my hand and talk about it.
Right.
And it was a lot easier. I mean, it sounds big and august to say, oh, I was testifying at the Senate committee, but really it's like, I mean, you sign in on the little iPad outside. You have 2 minutes to just say your piece, and anyone can do it. Anyone. And I remember you kind of reassuring me beforehand. It's like, hey, the 2 minutes is going to go by fast. So anyone that's interested in it, just find the issue you care about, reach out to TPPF folks. They'll get you hooked up with the right time and place and help you prepare for it, because 2 minutes does go by quick. So you have to know what you want to say, practice it. Preparation is persuasive on that, and say your piece. And it's a lot of fun, really gratifying. I mean, you don't always get the cherry on top of having the chairman come say thanks, but I was like, that just confirmed more than anything that it's like, man, everyone should be doing this.
So well said. And from my point of view, Dad, I've testified more times than I can count at this point. And so there was the interaction with the chairman, and then there was the executive director of the IT caucus. I don't know if I told you this, but he texted me afterward and he's like, hey, who was that there testifying? That was awesome. And the reason is multifold. One, you did a stellar job testifying, but then two, coming as a Texan who is affected by the issues, there's no special interest. It is personal interest. It's about me. You're recently engaged, you and your fiance, and the kids you're going to have, the family you want to build. That we can write white papers until we're blue in the face, which we will, and God love them because they're necessary to the process. But hearing from everyday Texans, I just know it means so much more to those members that, it's just about you and your own personal interests and nothing else.
Yeah, I remember at the LLC summit here, one of our speakers was saying like, hey, if you are just in this for the economic interests alone, you will not ultimately win the long game. And so I feel like, especially for the young folks, the LLC members, just pick something you care about that is affecting your everyday life. And if you can't find something, it's like you're not thinking hard enough, because I mean, you'd be shocked by how many things that they're talking about over on the Hill there that affect every little part of your life, whether you're aware of it or not.
Like whether it's, I was chatting with someone today about Elon and now the Google CEO, or Sergey Brin from Google, their idea to have data centers on Mars. And these ideas sound crazy, and everyone has a crazy. Sometimes you got to just like within reason, within reason here.
Sure.
But so to the point of issues that you care about, I'm going to give you a chance here at the end. For folks listening, the Tex Ledge, the Capital community, you're a Texan. You've been a Texan your whole life, if I understand correctly. What are the issues that you're caring about the most now, or some things for next session? Hey, legislature, you should really address this. So chance to get on the soapbox for a couple minutes.
Sure. You give a lawyer a microphone. I'll take as many minutes as you're willing to share here. One thing that came up recently, we hosted, it was an LLC event that we co-hosted with another nonprofit called Houston AI. And it was called Fueling the Texas AI Revolution. And you were actually a panelist on that, which I don't know about you, but that was, I've hosted a lot of events and moderated a lot. That was one of my very favorite all time.
Oh, it's so fun.
I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's one that, what was it? SB 6 this past session started to address, which is, okay, and a takeaway from that for me was, all right, there's a disconnect here between these companies that want to implement AI, that want to use it. There's a huge demand in the marketplace for it, and companies are trying to respond to that. But there's a gap between the energy infrastructure needed to support that and the aspirations of these companies. So finding a way to remedy that, and part of that is just going to be finding a way to increase production, being creative. I mean, there's talk of all these small nuclear reactors, for instance. Who knows if that's the solution? But it's not going to be just one thing.
Sure.
But I think finding a way to narrow that gap is going to be essential. And going back to the executive order, to zooming all the way out to maintaining and increasing the U.S. supremacy, because the AI race on a global level is largely going to come down, upstream of that to an energy race. And right now, we are not winning that. Yeah. The trajectory is not good. So I think that's something, especially in Texas, which is an energy and innovation mecca of the world, to really find a way to lead on that and have our policy reflect that.
Yeah.
All with the Texas values that we have been discussing this whole time.
No, well said. And that's Carson Clayton, who's our campaign director for Life Powered Energy Policy. We were at the Capitol this last week. We had 3 or 4 meetings with members or staff. Every single one of them asked about data centers and energy. So I can assure you, too, that's something we're looking into. It is a quite literally multi-trillion-dollar question, but Texas has to get it right. So I agree fully.
Yep.
Well, so last question for you, for listeners that want to find you, your work, or anything, I don't know, YouTube channel, Twitter, et cetera, where can they find you, Dom?
So LinkedIn's always easy. I'll give you my Jones Day address once I have it.
That's right.
But LinkedIn's easy. Instagram, dom.cruciani, is always a good place to connect. I'm probably most active on those 2 platforms.
Well, hey, thank you so much for coming out here. Again, congratulations on LLC Member of the Year and new job and all. But thank you so much for taking the time to come out here and talk about your experience.
Very good. Thank you for having me.